golden generation. Defined as an exceptionally gifted group of players of similar age whose achievements reach, or are expected to reach, a level of success beyond that which their team had previously achieved. Hazard, De Bruyne, Lukaku, Courtois, Witsel, Carrasco, Mertens, Vertonghen, Alderweireld, Dembele, Nainggolan, Vermaelen, company. Over the past decade, Belgium have featured all of these players and so many more at the best stage of their careers, all at the same time. If you're looking for the perfect example of a golden generation, look no further than this Belgium side, and yet they've won not one piece of silverware. But that's far from uncommon for a supposed golden generation. We've seen Croatia, England, Portugal, and even Hungary fail to see any glory of their golden generations, and it's usually down to a variety of things such as lack of squad depth, heightened pressure from fans and media, overrating the actual quality of players, not having the experience needed in international tournaments, and even just lacking that winning mentality needed in those knockout crunch matches. And it looks like Belgium's international woes aren't going to be ending anytime soon, despite the fact that they've got one of the most talent-packed squads in world football right now. And it all comes down to one thing: Belgium are bad, real bad. The performances of the likes of Brazil have shown that despite on paper the squads having similar amounts of talent, the two teams are a million miles apart in terms of quality during the 90 minutes that matter. And so don't be surprised if the Seleção and their fans are celebrating their 6th World Cup in December, while Belgium are watching from home. Back focusing on Belgium, in recent tournaments we've seen them come oh so close to glory. In the 2020 Nations League, they managed to make it to the semi-finals. They've made consecutive quarter-final appearances in the Euros, and most notably, they were probably the closest to knocking France out of the 2018 World Cup, finishing 3rd. Mix into this the fact that they're also ranked as the 2nd best national team in the world according to FIFA themselves, and everything pointed to them having a successful World Cup this year, but I'm not so sure. In fact, like I predicted earlier, they may just completely flop and struggle to make it out the group stages. And here's why. Look, I know it sounds crazy, and I'm sure this video will go on to make me look the absolute fool as Belgium lift the World Cup trophy this December, but I really do think that they're going to struggle, with their performance against Canada just strengthening my point. But to explain why Belgium just haven't been able to see glory, I'm going to have to go back to the 2014 World Cup, which would be the first major tournaments the Red Devils had qualified for in 12 years. It's important to note that at the time, Belgium were ranked as the 4th best national team in the world by FIFA, and so many eyes were on them, expecting to see good things. Having drawn Algeria, South Korea and Russia, Belgium breezed their way through an easy group, winning all 3 matches and conceding just once. However, they won 2 of their games 1-0 and were generally struggling to create many big chances. They came up against Belgium in the last 16, where they'd faced more frustration in front of goal, with the score 0-0 after 90 minutes. But after extra time, Belgium managed to squeeze through 2-1. They then came up against Argentina in the next round, losing 1-0 to the eventual finalists. And just like that, the Belgium golden generation's first shot at silverware was over. To be fair, it was a decent showing for a squad in their first taste of international tournament football, and certainly showed promise for a better performance 2 years later in the Euros hosted in their neighbours France. Mark Wilmots, who had guided Belgium to the previous World Cup and throughout that period to the Euros, was still in charge, although was facing pressure from fans as he hadn't impressed with the team's performances. So going into what would surely be a defining tournament for this Belgium side, a strong start was vital, and their opening game would be far from ideal, coming up against international giants Italy. Belgium started the game the slightly better side, however in the 32nd minute conceded first and went into the half a goal down. Following the break, Belgium failed to gain control of the game, and despite being now ranked as the 2nd best national team, lost the opening game of the Euros 2-0, conceding a second in the 93rd minute. The opening game was monumental for Belgium. It showed the team lacked the grit and quality it needed to grind out results against Europe's hardest teams to break down, and without Vincent Kompany, who was missing through injury, it appeared clear that Belgium would be unable to do anything of note. The Red Devils won their final 2 games of the group stage against Ireland and Sweden, coming 2nd in the group due to head-to-head record against Italy, once again scoring just 4 goals in the group stage. But Belgium had got lucky with the draw in the last 16, facing Hungary. The Red Devils blew them away, winning 4-0. They once again got a fortunate draw in the quarters, coming up against Wales, where in the 13th minute, midfielder Nainggolan scored one of the goals of the tournament, breaking the deadlock and allowing Belgium to reach the semi-finals. In what was embarrassing for the supposed best national team in Europe, Wales scored 3 times with no return, winning the game and knocking out one of the favourites for the tournament in the quarter-finals. It was truly the biggest embarrassment for any team at Euro 2016, bar none. Moving on. After the tournament, Mark Wilmots would be sacked, having failed to make it past the final 8 for 2 tournaments in a row. Replacing him would be Roberto Martinez, who was an interesting appointment. After a good few years at Wigan, Martinez would leave the club having won the FA Cup and guiding the Latics to Europe. In the same season they would also be relegated out of the top flight. He then joined Everton, where his first season would see a very impressive 5th place finish, followed by 2 mediocre campaigns. It was a risky appointment from the Belgian FA, but having already won silverware with a very limited Wigan squad, it was worth giving him a shot at the World Cup. Belgium were ranked 3rd in the FIFA coefficient by the time the World Cup had rolled round, and were on a 19-game unbeaten spell since Martinez's first game against Spain. Vincent Kompany had returned, and players like De Bruyne, Hazard and Lukaku had matured into world beaters. Unsurprisingly, Belgium made light work of Panama and then Tunisia, scoring 8 goals across the 2 games, before beating England 1-0 in a battle of the B teams, extending their unbeaten run to 22 matches. Despite this great form, it would be a similar story for the Red Devils, where after 68 minutes they found themselves 2-0 down to Japan in the round of 16. Having looked like they finally turned a corner, Belgium were making the same mistakes they had before, this time a round earlier. 5 minutes later, they were level. Maybe they had turned a corner after all. Nasser Chadli scored a 94th minute winner as Belgium reached the quarter-finals for the 3rd competition in a row, where they'd face none other than the greatest international team of all time, Brazil. The Red Devils started strongly though and found themselves 2-0 up after about half an hour and held on to the lead going into the second half. Brazil would grab a goal back in the 76th minute, but it wouldn't be enough. At the 3rd attempt, and first under Roberto Martinez, Belgium had broken their quarter-final curse, although they'd faced favourites France in the semi-final. I'm sure you all know how this went. France went on to win the entire thing, and Belgium were heartbroken once again. Now, Roberto Martinez had done enough to earn himself the right to manage Belgium for the 2020 Euros, although Belgium had to be wary of Martinez's history of his teams falling off and getting worse with each year Martinez spent there. And this is where I think Belgium made their most crucial mistake. After being knocked out in the quarters of the Euros 18 months ago, for the 3rd time in 4 international competitions, Belgium should have gone separate ways after their loss at the Euros. But they didn't, and now, after an extremely rough 13 months or so, they seem to have really regressed. I predicted a poor Belgian performance at this World Cup before it started, and after being played off the park by Canada, who are featuring in just their 2nd World Cup ever, it's clear that Belgium are once again not going to be fit to take home international silverware. They now face their 2 hardest group stage fixtures, and it's more than believable that Belgium don't make it out of this group, or at least find themselves finishing 2nd, where they would face either Germany or more likely Spain, who would undoubtedly beat them at what would be their worst performance at an international competition for their so-called golden generation. So what went wrong for Belgium? A combination of not having a balanced enough squad, as well as baffling tactics from former managers limiting their attacking output completely, to a poor system of late, which also limits the qualities of their best players, whilst also leaving them looking weak at the back. It also certainly wouldn't have helped that Belgium had gone on a 12-year barren spell of international competitions before this golden generation come through. It meant that so many of their players were inexperienced, and made them miss out in 2016, which was probably their best opportunity. Not only this, but Martinez has seemed stubborn in his unwillingness to drop older players, and start the likes of Wout Faes, Amadou Onana and Leandro Trossard, who are all performing at a higher level than some of the star names of the past. The Belgium FA clearly made a mistake in allowing Marc Wilmots 2 competitions and Roberto Martinez 3, leaving just 2 men in charge of the most impressive generation of players the country's ever seen, with neither manager proving himself as capable enough. You see, international football isn't like that at the club level. Everything is on one 7-game spell every 2 years, rather than multiple chances of glory each year. And so, if a team starts to plateau, or even get worse in their results at these tournaments, it's time to say goodbye. That's why I say Belgium should have got rid of Martinez after the Euros, and is also why I think it's likely that Southgate will also be leaving his post, as unless England win the World Cup this December, he'll have been unable to improve this team's results. Now don't get things mixed up. Southgate's treatment from England fans has been poor at best, and those calling for him to have been sacked before this World Cup are quite frankly embarrassing. But international football is always changing, and in the matter of just 4 tournaments, a team can go from the start of a golden generation to a team who've heavily declined and missed out on their only chance of glory for a very long time. To put it simply, the Belgian FA and the managers they've appointed have made a few very key errors, which has meant that this Belgian side joins the ever-growing list of golden generations which failed to live up to the hype. Maybe we should also take a harder look at what a golden generation is. Is it a group of players ready to conquer the world? Or simply a term which places too much pressure upon a group and in the end is a curse dressed up as a compliment? Thank you guys for watching, and let me know your thoughts on the Belgian golden generation. Have they flopped, or were they just never that good as a squad in the first place? Please like and subscribe if you're new, and most importantly, enjoy your day and sit back and watch the World Cup unfold in front of your very eyes.